throughout the state. Today, first we have Dustin Downey. Dustin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Currently at Western Kentucky University with the women's soccer program. As assistant coach here going into my 7th season. So been here for a while. Help out with the U.S. Grassroots courses here in the state of Kentucky. Recently got my A senior coaching license. So looking to kind of keep progressing there and moving forward with my education. And probably next on my list of things to do is to maybe do the UEFA B. So in regards to my coaching needs and things that I'm learning, that's kind of what I've got planned next. Yeah, that's kind of where I am right now in regards to coaching.
Awesome. And we also have Jeremy Anderson with us. Jeremy, can you tell you a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jeremy Anderson, currently director of coaching for Madison United in Richmond. Just recently finished with my B and hoping to go on with my A sometime next spring. I've been working with Kentucky ODP for about the last 7 or 8 years. I've been on region staff for a couple years as well. And kind of like Dustin, just looking to further my education as much as possible.
Great. And lastly, we have, but not leastly, but we have Scott Budnick. Scott, can you tell a little about yourself, please?
Sure. I'm currently with I'm a full-time staff coach with the Kentucky Fire Juniors in Louisville, Kentucky. I've been on the region staff now for a couple of years. Along with Jeremy, I just recently completed my USB coaching license. I'm a big proponent of coaching education and continuing to hone our craft. And I'm just recently back from a trip to Chicago where I participated in the Chicago Fire Emerging Talent Program. So all is good from our corner.
Awesome, guys. Well, I really appreciate you guys being here and this discussion about, framing like the regional ODP experience and particularly how our kids have done and things like that. Now with Dustin was on staff for the Region 3 camp, and we have Jeremy was with the Midwest region girls side, and we had Scott with the Midwest region boys side. So we should have some pretty unique perspectives on what all happened during camp. I guess we'll start with Jeremy. Jeremy, how did you feel like our girls in general did at camp?
Overall, and this is across the board, not just the 05s that I work with, we competed on a very high level. Kentucky typically only sends the best of the best up there, so we send smaller numbers, but it seems like everyone that we send seems to be in contention with any of the region teams that are being picked. I know that for the 05s I worked with, in some form or fashion, each player was looked at to be on that region pool. And I think overall we'll probably end up sending 2 or 3 to Boca come Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving tournament. I know with the older age groups, there's at least 1 or 2 in every age group that will probably make it. So overall, we're right there with the rest of the region.
Great. Scott, what was your thoughts on how boys performed?
Yeah, I was with the boys program, and overall, I'd have to echo Jeremy's sentiments. You know, I feel like everyone who was there from our ODP program was pretty competitive. No one was outclassed, and in a couple instances, one had bubbled up, towards probably the top 10 in the pool. So it was a good experience. And again, unlike some other states that might send more players, a greater volume or greater number of players, I think our idea of quality over quantity is spot on.
Awesome, great. So just some things that I want to ask you guys, and then we bring Dustin in this conversation shortly. Is what did you notice in terms of the top players at the camp? What were some common qualities that you saw, and in those cases, Kentucky players have those qualities? Did they shine a little bit more in certain areas of the game, like some techniques, things like that, or physically? Just some thoughts about your camp. We'll go with Jeremy first, and then we'll wheel back all the way around to Dustin here shortly.
Well, the unique thing with the 05 age group that I worked with was that from top to bottom, with the exception of maybe about 4 or 5 girls, out of the 120 we had, they were all very talented. Now, the differences that you could see in our Kentucky girls were tactically, we were very good. We knew where to go with the ball. We knew the decision-making was good. but technically I felt like we were just a little bit slower than some of the other states. But it made up for it, but with the fact that our girls were able to slow the play down or speed it up or just change the game in general, where you had some of those top players that were just incredible athletes could just go and change the game that way. So overall, I'd say our speed of play was a little bit slower, but our decision making was better generally than the rest of the states.
So just to make sure I'm on the same page with you, are you talking about technical execution, like how quickly we can receive the ball and how quickly we can get rid of it?
Exactly.
Okay, great. Scott, what did you think about our boys?
Same thing. I think we held our own pretty well. I think what I saw as a general trend was that we were competent technically. Probably did not stand out when it came to eliminating players and unbalancing defenders on a one-on-one situation, getting behind players and whatnot. But we were very solid. I thought our speed of play and mentally, I thought we were right there with everybody else.
Terrific. So, Dustin, let me kind of wheel back around to you and your South region experience. What were some qualities that the top players had in that South region? Was it more, were they tighter technically? Were they physically a little bit bigger or better? What makes a good region or South region player?
I think based on what I saw at camp that week, what stood out the most, and I think we're all aware of the current environment in the United States with the other avenues and routes into, the U.S. national team with the DA stuff, the ECNL, and then ODP. So based on the ODP talent that was at the Region 3, I think a lot of it did come down prior to the athleticism and what players were more athletic, and you had states, strongly represented, such as Florida, Texas, Georgia. Those were the three big states with the hotspot cities such as Atlanta, Dallas. You're looking at Florida and those bigger cities such as Miami, Tampa. So, population-wise, at some point you're going to find the better athletes, and if you can mix the athleticism with a little bit of technical skill, that will still sometimes outdo, especially as you advance in the next level. That will outshine somebody with technical skill that maybe just can't move quite as well or can't hold off a ball as well, because the speed of play picks up. And so when you receive a ball, no matter how technically strong you are, if somebody's able to close you down quicker, faster, beat you to that first touch, it just makes the game a lot tougher. So I think athletically, that's something that as you move forward in these older age groups, you have to be able to compete physically. And so I think that was probably the big standout thing at the Region 3 level is, who can run with the ball at speed, who can defend well, who can tackle, who can mix it up. So that would be something I'd say that the top players at the Region 3 camp were able to do.
Gotcha. So let me ask the two guys that were Midwest region, was there like a definitive style of play that they were really trying to hit on? I mean, it might be different from the girls, it might be different from the boys. But what would you describe that the pool games were like? What were they trying to get out of it? We'll go to you first.
I'm first.
Jeremy.
All right. Actually, with the girls, and typically what you see out of the girls' soccer is very possessive. Our whole theme for the week was, number one, being able to scan the field and make early decisions. And also at the same time, can they be brave with the ball? And it really took to the latter end of the camp for the girls to realize, yeah, there are moments I can take girls on and just be brave and try to create something, just 1v1s or even 2v1s, rather than just needlessly kind of moving the ball around just to move it around. Overall, the girls, they love to pass. They love to, I wouldn't say they could really break into the next layer all that easy, but at the same time, they're 05s. It was their first time playing 11v11. I got the chance to watch some of the older age groups, and you could see the progression in that the older age groups really look to attack, really look to go at each other, a lot more physical, where the younger age groups were still kind of feeling it out. But from day 1 to day 4, you could see a complete difference. It was very good possession, very good build up, and then it was just nonstop attack, and everything just became fun for them.
Right. What were your thoughts, Scott?
On the boys' side, it was sort of a possession-oriented style. But at the time, the World Cup was going on, and that was influencing a lot, because I think what you're seeing is a general trend, maybe from the World Cup, is that, at least as far as our regional camp staff were thinking, is that maybe we're having a little bit of a pendulum swing away from just pure possession and more towards possession with a purpose. So we always wanted the ball. We wanted to have more of a little bit of a mindset towards when can we go forward. Let's look to go forward when we can, but if not, then let's keep it. But then we also tried to make an effort to make sure that players were comfortable understanding that we don't always have to have the ball, and sometimes it's okay to be out of possession, which is maybe sort of a messaging that sometimes gets lost, at least in the last, 5 or 6, 7 years with my involvement in the region program. So it was interesting. I think you started seeing towards the end of the week that players felt a little bit more comfortable hitting longer passes, passing over distance, to try and hit what I would say probably slightly more speculative balls than maybe they were used to in their home environments, and certainly from between day 4 and day 1. So I think mentally they started to allow themselves the freedom and the discretion to play in that way, and it was good to see. It was fun.
Awesome. So, Dustin, does that sound similar to what was going on down in the South region, or a little bit different maybe because of a different style of player that's coming out of there? Or what do you think?
No, I think both Jeremy and Scott hit on a couple similar points and some things that I saw and trends and patterns in the game. I was working with 01s and 02 age group on the female side. In regards to what Region 3 wants, they're very particular about playing in a 1-4-3-3 formation. And then they're also they have an ODP manual for Region 3, which I'm not sure if y'all have read, but it's very specific in regards to rules of possession and certain things that they want to see. It's actually a very, very well-written brochure or PDF file. It's very long, but I'll share that with you all if you'd like to see it. It's pretty good. But in saying that, I think it's very robotic what I saw in a 1-4-3-3, and that for me, players really struggle to make decisions on their own. They have trouble reading cues of the game because I feel like they're told the ball's here, you're wide, and this is where you are. This is how we want to build, and they just go there because that's what they were told to do, and that's how they've been told to play. But in regards to building out, and I think maybe Jeremy said, like, looking around, what's going on around you, their spatial awareness, I thought they really struggled with that part of the game and their ability to make decisions based on what's happening versus doing something that they were just told to do. I'm not sure they know why they're doing it. They just know that this is when the ball is here, I'm supposed to be here. And I think that was something that I noticed, and not just in Region 3, but in youth soccer and the girls' side in general. And then also, like Scott said, I thought there was a struggle to kind of play forward and get beyond that last line, especially in the be creative in the final third. What are you really doing to get behind that defense? And I'm not sure they were really able to do a good job, again, reading the cues of the game. How do we get behind that? We felt that there were a lot of balls that were played on the ground in front of defenders instead of trying to stretch them and put it in behind. And that I think there's a fear of turning the ball over because they've been taught, to kind of like Jeremy was saying, possess just to possess, or not really that idea of possess with a purpose, to get behind, to attack and go forward. And like Scott said, it's okay to not have the ball sometimes. So if you can put it in that final end, and maybe now you're defending, but it's higher up the field. But I think there's a fear of losing the ball somewhere that's been taught. And so those were a few trends, but Jeremy kind of touched on it too. For me, I've seen so many youth players in the past few months that get a ball with nobody around them, and we play backwards. We dribble backwards instead of looking to turn to go forward. And again, I think that's just a lack of awareness in their spatial awareness and their vision, ability to take in information around them. I'm not sure they're processing information fast enough. And maybe it's that of just possession, keep the ball. So I got it, but my back's turned, so I'm just going to play a backwards pass because that's what I see, versus trying to turn and go forward and make something happen. with that idea, like Scott said, with possession to attack, a possession with a purpose. So those are some trends I've seen, even at the top level at Region 3. That was in the pool game as well. So, the play was good and the athletes were there. But I think in regards to the soccer minds and their ability to think critically for themselves, still has a way to go.
That's interesting. That's kind of the reflection I've had from this past ODP season, is that I feel like going into next season, that's going to be our theme is recognition, then your decision, then your execution of the moments, because I feel like some kids, you're right, are too fearful of making mistakes. And I'm not sure if that's on us and how we identify players, because a lot of times as coaches, you see them make a mistake, you're like, well, that's in trouble. So we have a tendency to look at safe players sometimes versus those who can unlock things. So I think that's interesting. I guess a question back to you. Okay, Scott.
Sorry, just one sort of ancillary point off of that. One other trend that I've been noticing in the last couple of seasons, or ODP region camps, is that we're seeing a lot of the same type of player. We see a lot of 6 and 8s and would-be 10s, and we're not seeing what I would probably see in terms of player pool candidates, more of a traditional defensive core. So we have a lot of players, for us, from a personnel standpoint, it was difficult for us to find out-and-out 4s and 5s. We could go ahead and fit in a 2 and a 3. We could take a midfielder with a little bit of pace and who's decent in one-on-one situations defensively, and sort of slot them into the 2 and the 3. But when it came to traditional 4s and 5s, for me, I tend to think of dominance in the tackle, very strong in tackle, very strong aerial dominance, whatnot. Those players were somewhat lacking, at least on the boys' side, and and this year and definitely last year as well. So you're also seeing more of a sort of a homogenous player pool, which was kind of interesting to me. Where have all the defenders gone?
Yeah, I can agree with you there, because we had issues finding 2s and 3s with the girls, and I had the pleasure of being able to work with the 8s and the 10s in our core group, and we had so many girls that were playing the 8 and playing the 10 that we'd drop them back into a 2 or a 3 because they're athletic and could move with the ball, and it just got them out of their comfort level. We really struggled to find a back line for our 05s where everything coming forward really clicked. So wholeheartedly agree there, Scott.
All right, so let's roll it back to Dustin and ask this question, since Dustin, you have a pretty unique perspective, since with your job, your job is to go out and find players from all over the place. How would you feel that our Kentucky girls would do in the South Regional camp, particularly this past year? I know we've done it in the past, but what are your thoughts there on our girls and how would they fit in?
That's an interesting question, because I think Kentucky has a lot of players to offer, but I'm not convinced that they're all right now in the ODP system. So in regards to Kentucky girls and how they would compete, in the South region, I think if you could get a strong, cohesive team where everybody was committed to the ODP program, I think they would compete just fine. Based on –
Well, hold on. Before you go any further, just to clarify, the South region doesn't do the ID camp like the Midwest region is. That's correct.
Yes, right? So they do a camp. They bring in their state teams. They play some games. Each kind of staff coach works with a couple teams throughout the week. They go in. They recommend who they think should maybe make the pool as a staff coach, and then the state coaches also throw in who they think should be in the pool. And so each night there's a pool training or a pool game. And they kind of treat it like an actual camp.
So let me kind of narrow the question scope here. Is how would you think some of our Kentucky girls would do, like in terms of pool games, not just as a Kentucky team, but as individuals?
I think we've got some individual players that would be able to hold their own. I think off the top of my head, I think you've got some kids that are coming out of the state of Kentucky that could come in and make some noise. I think it just comes down to the numbers, to the numbers game. I don't know how many we'd be able to get into the pool, but I think you could probably send in 2 or 3 for an age group, maybe. it just depends on that age group, obviously, and what that age group is bringing to the table. But based on what I know on the Kentucky side, and in age groups, you could probably send in 2 to 3 per team, probably in the age group. I would say that'd be fair.
Okay, great. So just to kind of wrap things up, so we don't keep you here all day, because we want to make sure Scott can actually drive in his car at some point. If you're going to talk to a bunch of Kentucky coaches about things that we really need to improve with our player pool, all the way down from U10 up to U17, and how to produce these type players, what are some things that you recommend coaches to really focus on their players to get them to the level that we need to do well at the regional camps? We'll start with Jeremy, and then we'll work all the way to Dustin.
Honestly, I would encourage our coaches to encourage our kids to make mistakes and learn that way, rather than, like Dustin kind of said, everything was kind of robotic with the possession. To encourage them to have more ideas and make those mistakes, to learn from those ideas. And like we did with the girls, just be brave. Like, learn how to take players on one-on-one. Learn how to break down the next line of defense. Learn how to just go at a team rather than just moving a ball needlessly. Past that, it's more of just a determination of the kids. Do they want it? And can the coaches encourage the kids to want it as well?
Scott, what you think?
Sorry, Corey Johnson was over here messing with me. I think, as always, I think speed of play is important. I think the processing ability to process information quickly and come up with the right result. A little generic of a response, but it's true. Passing over distance for me would be a big one as well. The ability to hit, 30, 35-yard balls. Well, yard is kind of dependent upon physique and age and whatnot. As well would be a second one. And then I had a third one, but that one just left my mind. If I can remember it, I'll chime back in.
Awesome. Dustin, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so for me, I'll kind of touch.
Oh wait, I remember. Sorry, with the advent. Sorry, the advent of the VAR. For me, one of the big takeaways, and I apologize to interrupt. For me, defending in one-on-one situations without fouling would probably be another big issue for me, because you start thinking about where all the goals were scored in the World Cup and what you're seeing on restarts, set pieces, all of that. I think the advent of the VAR technology and the idea that more of the goals are scored from set pieces, from distance, and particularly as you model through the group stage and progress into the elimination knockout rounds. I think what I've seen, at least technically in terms of raw data, is more and more of those goals are scored inside the box off one-touch finishes, and I think I read 40-45% of the goals were scored off of restarts. So for me, 1v1 defending without fouling, speed of play, and then the passing over distance.
All right, great. Are we ready for Dustin to talk now, Scott? Are we okay?
Sorry.
Dustin, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So for me, I'm going to go back to kind of what I said earlier. I just feel like there needs to be more players who can think critically and make decisions. And right now, I don't feel like I've got too many kids that come to the sideline and, well, what should I do there? Well, I can't tell you what to do. The game's free flowing. You have to be able to make those decisions, because I can't tell you a definite answer. Because next time it might be a different situation, and you're going to do that because I told you to. So I think we need to try to put players in a training environment and a holistic and realistic training environment that allows them to train to be able to make decisions. Even we had a little kid camp, and are we playing throw-ins or kick-ins? You make the decision. You decide. I think too much. Again, it's kind of getting away from that organized style. Is can we allow the players to make decisions and think and problem solve? And for me, I think one thing I'm trying to do more of, and I think maybe as a coaching unit, is to get away from pattern play and these warm-ups where there is no pressure. I think I'm trying to do more things with pressure, with defenders. So it does allow some thought process into what you're doing. I think when you do these pattern plays, let's say in a 4-3-3, you give them all these ideas, but it's easy because you're telling them what to do and they can do it. But if you set them up in a way that it's a 4-3-3, but now you've got defenders in the midfield and defenders in the back line of some sort, and then you can build off of that. Well, now they're having to think, because when they pass it down the line one time, now the defender moves. Now they're going to go inside. And can you help them understand the cues of the game? So when they get in those environments, now they've been there before and they've done it, and they can make those decisions based off the cues of the game rather than what the coach is telling them to do. So I think that's, for me, is something that I'd like to see coaches try to do more, is less coaching, I guess, and put them more in a realistic training environment and allow the players to make those decisions and help guide them to make those correct decisions when it comes into the game.
Yeah, I'll echo those. As I think, us as coaches, we have to put our kids in good positions where they have to make decisions based on what they see. And that's what I think, with the ODP program this coming year, that's what we'll be focusing on. And hopefully we'll be focused on with all of our teams. So everyone that was out here watching today, thank you very much for tuning in. We're hoping to be able to get this a little bit more frequent throughout the year, some different topics and some different guests. But I'd like to thank Dustin, Jeremy, and Scott for popping on here today and adding their insights on the regional camps. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Derek.
Pleasure.
Thanks, guys.